2 Corinthians chapter 5 a little bit, which we've been doing, but I'll just talk about the end of chapter 4. I mean, should we read it?
Yes.
Huh. You okay for me to storytell it a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the end of chapter 4, Paul sort of unpacks his heart a little bit. And he said, look, those of us who are alive are being constantly handed over to death in order that the life of Christ might be manifest in us. Now, do you understand that a little bit? From what Mel was saying and how the choices that Mel's made, can you see that death was at work in her? Even if you just take that choice, that melody, you know, the melody on melody, you know what I mean? As in the Chinese looking one, as opposed to the one that doesn't look so Chinese. You know what I mean? And so she had a choice, and she made a choice, and that was being handed over to death. She made a choice, not me, but you, Lord. It's not my will, but your will. And that choice produces something marvelous. You look at that single choice. When did Jesus die? He died in Gethsemane, when he said, I don't want to go through this. But not what I want, what you want. And something within him just completely gave himself over to death at that particular point, knowing what he was in for. And it was in for a lot more than crucifixion, if you're wondering. And did that choice produce a lot of life?
Yeah, in us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in him. Now, when Melody made that choice, it produced life in other people and in her. So those of us who are alive, spiritually alive, are being constantly handed over to death in order that the life of Christ might be manifest in others. So death is at work in us, but life is at work in others. That's the definition of ministry. And if what people do can't fit through that grid, through that filter, then God actually doesn't regard it as ministry. But the whole context of that is that God is preparing people for an eternal glory, and his picture is bigger than yours. And his goals for you, and his plans for you, and his purposes for you are far bigger than you have any idea of. And so he's seeing the future you right now. He's at all points of time simultaneously. So as he's looking at you now, he's also seeing who you will become as he's looking at you now. Now, anyone who can do that, is it easy for them to say, it is worth it? Yes? Yeah. It is worth the process of this. Even though you're here, he doesn't deal with you as if you're there. He deals with you as if you will be there. And so he's shaping you and preparing you. And godliness and humility and cooperation with him and his purposes is his vehicle to make you safe for glory. And as he outworks his purposes and he organises all your circumstances for your spiritual good and your eternal good, they're both the same thing. So our light, and in the end of chapter 4, this is the beautiful truth set up by Paul. All right? It follows, Paul is like crazy with the sequencing of his thoughts. One thought precedes another and hangs off that, and it just proceeds bang, 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 bang. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse, I think it's 17, our light and our momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we don't fix our eyes on what is seen. For what is seen, that's temporary. We fix our eyes on what is unseen, which is eternal. And then he goes to talk about how if the body that we're in is destroyed, then we have an eternal dwelling with God, prepared by God. So he starts to talk about an eternal dwelling place, and that is our home. And to be in the body is to be away from the Lord. And we prefer to be with the Lord. But we're here now, being prepared for glory. So he lays down this teaching for Christians to realise that they are eternal beings prepared for something far higher than the things that occupy normal people within the realm of time. And so that they start to see differently. And when you start to see differently, you live differently, and you're able to cooperate with a God who's got a very different plan than the plans that a human being that thinks that it's all about my life right now. He's got a very different agenda. And so he's not afraid to bring in light and momentary troubles. He's not afraid to hand you over to deathly choices that life can happen in other people, because of what he knows it will produce in you and the eternalness of where he's going with it all. And so Paul talks about this heavenly dwelling. And then he talks about how we're all going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ. And he'd already introduced this concept to them in the book that he'd written previous, which I'm going to read to you now in 1 Corinthians chapter 3. And he puts it this way. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 11 to 15. For no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Jesus Christ. If anyone builds on this foundation, using gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, and straw, their work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. It will be revealed with fire. And the fire will test the quality of each person's work. If what has been built survives, the builder will receive a reward. If it is burned up, the builder will suffer loss, yet will be saved, even though only as one escaping through the flames. So he's saying that there will be a time when our lives and the quality of what we've done with our salvation, this judgment is not about whether we get saved or not. It's not about condemnation. It's not about measuring your sin and saying you deserve to go to hell. It says the quality of a person's work. It says there's a foundation of Christ, and it's talking about what a person builds on that foundation. It's what you do with your life. So there's several things you can draw from that straight away. I hope you're ready for this. Number one, it makes it very clear that the purpose of life is preparation for eternity. Because what takes place at that judgment creates eternal things. It says there is a reward and there is loss. And there is eternal reward and there is eternal loss. So it's talking about the quality of what God has forged in you and through you in this little parcel of time and circumstance with which we are allotted. That it governs our eternity. Have you got your head around that yet? The more purpose that comes into your life, the more you realise how precious time is. Your time on this earth, all of it, is to prepare you for eternity. And whatever preparation for eternity, it has to happen in this time zone where there is a variableness of your character, where there is development, where you can bless those who curse you, where you can love your enemies, where you can overcome evil with good, where you can show mercy and extend kindness, where you can extend forgiveness. You can't do any of those things in heaven, but these are the things on earth that we get to do, that get to develop the image of Christ within our soul, and that is the way it happens. There is no sanctification in the grave. The character that you sow at death is the one you reap in eternal life. Purgatory doesn't exist. For Catholics it might, reality it doesn't, but Protestants somehow create this space in their head where they think somehow it is there, because they live as if it is. They live it as if time doesn't prepare eternity. So how do you live? All I know is that if Christians live for the things of time, how can they expect the world to listen to them when they say that life is preparation for eternity? So how will the world hear an eternal message if they see people living for the things of time as much as they do? So here's this fire. I remember I was reading a guy, Rick Joyner again, and he was talking about when he went to heaven and he saw Jesus. Jesus had blue eyes. And so he was reading in Revelations how it says that, you know, Jesus, when he comes back, his eyes will be like blazing fire. And then he suddenly realised, has anyone ever seen blazing fire? Really blazing fire? At the core of it,
It's blue.
it's blue. Now, can you imagine someone with eyes like that, just looking straight through you and seeing everything, and it's going through a personalised, intense, fiery peeling away of what is real and what's exposed, what's lies within your own heart, with your own life, what you lived for, who you lived for, what was forged within you, the choices that you really made in that secret place, being about you, all exposed. But exposed in a way, but then gone. Understand fire, because it's not just exposure, it's extinguishing. And that part there is not talking about what's exposed, it's talking about what's left. Now, when we lived at Grosvenor, we lived on 16 acres and half of it was wooded. And Sydney's cold like it is now. They're wearing jackets, not shirts. And as soon as winter started, about now, the five of us would grab our chainsaws and go down to the back, and we'd be cutting all day long. We'd be cutting ironbarks. It's really hard wood. These dead trees still up so the white ants. We leave them up so that white ants don't eat them when they fall. So when we drop them, they're dead. And so we're cutting them up with chainsaws, and we spend all day, probably all weekend, just storing up these logs in this huge pile. And my wife, bless her heart, she has this slow combustion stove, and she goes out there like an absolute trooper, for a cold, frosty morning with her Ugg boots on, and splits these logs. You know what I mean? It's just like seeing her swing a blocks. Honestly, never meet her in a dark alley. Anyway, and she just puts these solid hardwood logs in the fire, and that fire does not go out for 3.5 to 4 months. It burns continually. So you have all these solid wood, and it burns and burns and burns. And you know, at the end of those 4 months, she can basically she can do this for 2-3 years, and then she'll clean the ash at the bottom of this after burning these solid hard logs every day, all day, just shoveling them. She's like one of those coal tenders, just, you know what I mean? Not quite like that, but when it burns low, she'll shove another one in. Now, this is constantly 24 hours a day for 4.5 months. After a couple of years, guess how much ash is in the bottom? It's like that much. This huge amount of volume of heavy, hard wood just turns into nothing.
Probably about that much.
About that much, you reckon, after a couple of years?
I do it every year.
Every year, about that much. But it's like you're talking a forest turning into this much in this little area. Even if you have a whole forest and a bushfire goes through and burns every tree to the ground, the first light wind will blow it all away within minutes. And there's nothing left. The point is not that you be judged and exposed. The point is you having nothing left. I remember once Rosie found a diamond in this dust. It was untouched. I just got her, she lost a beautiful topaz necklace a while ago, and she's grieved. It's the only thing she's ever grieved about, and said, Lord, I still grieve. I really wish I could have this back. And
only because it was a gift from you.
Yeah. Anyway, so I basically, since last December, I've been working with a gem cutter in WA to find a topaz, and for him to cut it the way that I want, which is his radial cut, you know what I mean? And he said, and he's an experienced gem cutter, like 40 years experience cutting gemstones, right? And so he said, I've never cut one like that before. And so we're working through it together, how I'd like it cut like that. And he says, I really like it. I've never done it before. This is fantastic. I love it. And so he sends it over to me, and I take it to a jeweler called 10 Ants up at Surf Parade or whatever it's called. And two jewelers had 40 years experience, and they looked at the stone and said, that's a competition cut. That is brilliantly cut. I've never seen a stone cut like that before. That's, oh, give me a look. Oh, wow, that's great. Come over here. Oh, wow, this is great. He's done a great job. Wow. You know what I mean? And that's just, and it's topaz. And he started talking about topaz. And he said, oh, there's most topazes are man-made from overseas, and they're naturally man-made radiated. They're heated. When they come out, they're clear. They're white out of the ground. But it's only when they're radiated by man do they gain colour. And he said, I think this one might have come out of Mount, what was it, Mount someone?
Surprise.
Mount Surprise, because they're radiated, but the radiation varies and it creates these sort of clouds to the eye, and it creates a variance. They're naturally radiated, and they have a completely different feel about them than man-made things. So I mean, God is radiating your life through light and momentary troubles, through handing you over to death that others might live. There's an eternal glory that's being created within you. Not man-made radiation, but God-made, with the unique characteristics of you, but Jesus reflected through you in the most beautiful way. And he's creating this gemstone. Gems are only ever created under intense heat, deep down in the ground, under tremendous pressure. And a little bit of money. The gemstone cost me $400. It should have cost me $800. But with $800, I got myself a tiny little thing that can't be destroyed. But for $800, you can buy an awful lot of hay. And it looks like a lot. And it's outward. But with the fire, it's all gone. And with the fire, gemstones untouched. And so we are the Lord's gemstones. And now is when we're in the furnace and the fire. Now we're being shaped. And the result is eternal. Can you get your head around the eternalness of what is being shaped in you now? To cooperate with him as he outworks his purposes and joining with him greatly accelerates his ability to shape you in eternity. But you've got to understand that this precious little time you have, you'll never have again. In all eternity, you'll never have this shape in time ever again. In 10 billion years' time, you'll never have this opportunity of time and circumstance that you have as a gift now to be shaped. That is the manifestation of what is happening now. Do you realize the significance and the calling that you've got? Who you are is great. God's purposes are great. Now you're being shaped for it. This is a quote by Samuel Rutherford. When the race is ended and the play is either won or lost, and you are in the utmost circle and border of time, just about to step across that millimetre thick line from this world to the next, just at the very edge, about to step over. Each of you will reach that. Kelly was trying very hard to get there real quick this week. Well, you weren't, someone else was trying to help you. Yeah. And shall put your foot within the march of eternity. All the good things of this short night dream that we call life shall seem to you like ashes of a blaze of thorns and straw. When you're about to step across that line into death and into eternity, a summons to your eternal palace. All the good things of your short night dream shall seem to you like ashes of a blaze of thorns and straw. All the things that concern you right now, so pressing, worried so, focused on the things of time, focused on the light, focus on the worries and cares of life that choke the life within you. The moment you cross that line, they will not matter at all. they'll be the ash that's just blown away and completely forgotten. The question is, what have you allowed to do in your heart? That's why I love this. Only one life. 'Twill soon be past. And only what's done for Christ will last. And when I'm dying, how happy I will be if the lamp of my life was burned out for thee. I don't know how long I've got left. We're 60 this year, so now I'm coming into the dying zone.
The what?
The dying zone. This is the season of life where people die.
Over my dead body.
Preferably, actually, I would actually prefer to die over my wife's dead body. That's on record. Every husband wants to tuck his wife into bed and kiss her goodnight into eternity, let her cross over safely without grief, and then he take that blow. And that's what love should do, eh? So, if I have my way, and you have your way, if we can get the Lord to agree, you'll have to talk to him about that. We're good. But every woman says, no, let's do it notebook style. Let's do it notebook style. I said, honey, that's unrealistic. Let me read this. Now I'll flip back to 2 Corinthians 5. Do you understand? That revelation of eternity changes a lot. I was reading this week in Revelations 21. It's talking about the city. The New Jerusalem, here's the crazy thought, the one that comes out of heaven onto the earth, an angel measured it with man's measurement, so it's so that we understand how big it is. 2,200 kilometres wide, and the base of it is a square, by 2,200 kilometres the other direction. Right, that's a third of Australia. That's its base. And it is high as it is wide and long. So I'm assuming structurally it would take the shape of a pyramid. Therefore, you divide the volume by 3 for your mathematicians. Okay, now if you slice, therefore, and people that have been to heaven have described it like that. And basically it's like a tiered garden. Now imagine, so from here to the top of that ceiling is about, say, 9 metres roughly, okay? So imagine you wouldn't want tiers more than 10 metres, agree? That's far enough to the top of that apex right up there, okay? Mm-hmm. So, hello! And otherwise you're going, I feel alone. The next tier, I can't even see them, you know? Yeah. And so every 10 metres, okay, now the living space in that city vastly is greater many times over than the entire surface area of the earth. That's the size of the city. And it's not vacant. That's the place he's gone to prepare mansions and dwelling places. So it's full of people. Now, I don't know about you, when I think of how many Christians have, within a couple of generations, more people live on the face of the earth at that time than have lived preceding in the whole history of the planet. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what we're coming up to? We're coming up to a time when at the moment that city is largely not populated. And it's going to get filled. Yeah. You are living at the fulfillment of the ages. You were born for such a time as this. You are incredibly strategic. But it was a time that people have to know what they're on about. Know why they live and what they're living for, without any question whatsoever. And you'll be part of something very, very great. That's why I personally believe. And your preparation for such a time can't be normal if you're called to something that great. And I believe you're here listening to this, being shaped by different things, being shaped uniquely, because you're strategic. You matter. You may feel very average. You may think of yourself very smallly. That's not in God's thoughts, nor is it the truth. Good thoughts? How are we going with time? 22. Okay, because I've only just started unpacking it. Anyway, So 2 Corinthians chapter 5, I think we got to the point where for Christ's love compels us. Because we are convinced that one died for all, therefore all died, yes? And that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them. And we don't think of people the way we used to, but we see people differently now. We see broken people that if they had the new birth, they wouldn't be that way. They'd be incredibly different people. So you see a selfish and broken person, but for Christ, there goes many of us. And so grace has this incredible ability to raise from the dead people that are thoroughly dead. And because you believe that, because you're one of them, then you'll speak. It's like we believe. Paul says here, we believe, therefore we spoke. If you believe that eternity is real, it tends to loose your lips and break your fears. Because you're in a whole different league now. You're unique. You're called. You're a special messenger of the Lord. You're one of the very few select people that have a message that will save people's souls. Automatically, that means you're not a normal human being anymore. You're incredibly called. You've got to understand that Jesus loves all people. He doesn't love them all equally. Like it or not, he walked past 10,000 people to call you. That automatically puts you in an extremely special and privileged category where understanding your calling, you can't live and you don't feel like you can live a normal life anymore because you know your future. You know the truth. And someone has called you. So you're destined. And it's just the realization of that calls you into it. Paul said the one thing that really stirred him in Philippians chapter 3 was to take hold of that for which he was called heavenwards. But if you don't even know you're called heavenwards, you're not going to take hold of anything. But you were taken hold of something very, very big. And when you realize that, there's something within you that wants to take a hold of it, to reach for it. Because you're called to something very, very great. That means God's made a statement about you. And if you don't agree with that, you're wrong. And you need to let go of your little thinking, your little life, and realize that he intends to do great things in you and through you. And it's not just about you. So many other people. You'll often hear this, like, you need to come to the Lord. You know why you need to come to the Lord? You need to come to the Lord. You know why you need to come to the Lord? Because of the hundreds of people that are relying upon you to come to the Lord. Because if you don't, they don't. That's the truth. So you think your life doesn't matter? There's this huge volume of people behind you that will be impacted and impact other people. And they're like dominoes set to fall. All relying upon you coming into reality. If you do, you've changed their destinies, not just your own. If we didn't get saved, how many people in this room wouldn't be saved?
Yeah,
And what about you? And what about the repercussions? It just goes on and on and on. Your life is not about you. You are a servant of the Most High God and always will be for the rest of eternity. But now is your shaping time. So from now on we regard no one from a worldly point of view, though we once regarded Christ this way, we do so no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old is gone and the new has come. Now all of this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. That God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting men's sins against them. And he has committed to us the message of reconciliation. We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. Now, often Paul's writing to mature Christians, and he's saying be reconciled to God. Most people think of being reconciled to God as getting saved, yes? In this context, it can't be, and it isn't talking about that.
Yeah.
The context is making a choice to let go of your own purposes and join him in his, isn't it? So anyone ever been to an accountant and they've reconciled the books?
They've made it all line up.
They made it all line up. Balances are zero. It's beautifully balanced. It's in agreement. You ever sort of been reconciled with something within your own mind? That I'm now settled with it. Yeah? I'm at peace with it. Do you understand what reconciliation means as a word? In this context, it's like coming into harmony, harmonizing, being at peace with it, like settled with it. I'm good with this now. I implore you in Christ's behalf, be reconciled with God. He's given something to you, a ministry of reconciliation. That's written to all Christians. And that God is making his appeal through you. You've got to understand, ministry, like it or not, ministry is people. It's not function. Because there's a reaching people through people. To be reconciled with God is to say, okay, I'm adjusted. This is what you want, I'm on board. Sometimes it's ignorance, we didn't understand, we didn't know. Sometimes God calls it out of us as we come alive. But he brings us to a place where he says, this is where I'm going. Are you on board with this? Come with me. Come and follow me. And as we do that, this beautiful adjustment happens within us. And it says that God he made Christ who had no sin to be sin for us, that in him we might become the righteousness of God. And as God's fellow workers, we urge you not to receive God's grace in vain. What is it to receive something vain? What's the word vain mean?
Emptiness.
Empty.
Yeah.
It means empty. To receive something in vain, like if you imagine you've got a gift, right? And you open up the gift, you open it up, and guess what? There's nothing in there. It's vain. Or imagine you spend $100,000 on this fantastic website, and they had all the reviews, and it just seemed like they were legit, and you sent it off, and nothing came back. It was all in vain. Imagine the Lord investing all he's invested in you. All the work that his Spirit has worked in you, done in you, blessed you, given you favour, blessings, and he's worked so much in you, and he got back nothing for his own purposes. Nothing for him. And often the person will go, well, he got me, didn't he? To which you would say, well, sort of. Not really. He didn't really get you. So for you, does he have you? There's this beautiful poem by George MacDonald. God said, walk in the town. Oh, how's it go? I'll read it. I haven't read it for a long time.
Let me walk in the fields.
Let me walk in the fields. God said, no, walk in the town. I said, but there's no flowers there. No flowers, he said, but a crown. I said, how's it go?
Smoke is
But the air is thick and fog is veiling the sun. But he said, but souls are sick and souls in the dark are undone. I said, no, I'm going to read it. I don't want to wreck it. It's a beautiful poem.
so I turned my face.
You want to jump? You want to jump ahead? Don't
No.
jump ahead! Don't do it. Where did it go? Anyone know where it is? Anyone knows it off by heart? I know off by heart, but I haven't practiced it. I said, let me walk in the fields. God said, no, walk in the town. I said, but there's no flowers there. He said, no flowers but a crown. I said, but the sky is black and there's nothing but noise and din. But he wept as he sent me back. He said, there is more. There is sin. I said, but the air, it's thick and fog is veiling the sun. And But he said, yet souls are sick and souls in the dark are undone. I said, I shall miss the light and friends will miss me, they say. He said, choose tonight whether I am to miss you or they. I pleaded for time to be given. He said, is it hard to decide? It will not seem hard in heaven to have followed the steps of your guide. I cast one look at the fields and I set my face to the town. He said, my child, will you yield? Would you leave your flowers for a crown? Then into his hand went mine, and into my heart came he. And I walk in a light divine, the path I feared to see. I believe God brings people to that choice, him or them, their way or his way, their purpose his purpose, his life or their life. And that choice is wrapped up in other people, and you don't recognise it. Just as Melody realised that choice was wrapped up in other people. And they don't look good, they don't feel good. But that's where he is. And he puts his hand out and he says, will you join me? Will you leave your life for a crown? And when you cast one look that way and say, yes, I will, and in your heart you say yes, then in a sense you really are putting your hand in his hand. And when that happens, something changes in your heart. And you start to walk in a light you never had before. I was reading in Revelations 21 about this beautiful city that I was telling you about. It has these words. Nothing impure will ever enter it. Nothing. That's an absolute, that is hauntingly eternal. Nothing impure will ever enter it. Well then, where's the place for impure Christians? I don't know, but I want to deal with my stuff now. Nor will will anyone who does what is shameful and deceitful. So these things will never enter it. Now, when I realised that I had eternal life and I was blessed and I was being shaped for eternity, and the worst thing that can happen to me will turn around to be the best thing that ever happened to me if I let the Lord shape me. That means I can't lose. I do not have anything I need fear. He has me in his hand and he's shaping me with my circumstances. I'm not alone. I'm not cut adrift. I'm not abandoned. So I'm secure and I'm loved and I hadn't called. And this is an opportunity to be changed. And I'm going to take that opportunity and grow. But I get to take other people along the journey. And then all of a sudden I realised eternity. And then I suddenly realised, but what of others? But what of others? It's okay if you've grown up in church and every person you know is saved. When I realised these things, I was the only one in my world that was saved. I felt like Neo in the Matrix that goes, oh boy, you know what I mean? Like, my whole world just changed. Just right there. Never can go back. My reality is just pull apart, and this is real, and that's not real. I thought that was real, now this is real. Full on. Wow. And so then I believed, so I spoke. And then I saw a friend get saved. And then others get saved. And then all of a sudden I started a journey and I started a walk. Because I made a choice that my life was about his purposes. I was now in the big world of his purposes, not let go of my little world wrapped up in myself now. And when I did that, I began to walk. And as you begin to walk, that you really grow in godliness, and the Lord starts to really change you and graft the character and the image of his Son into your soul. Because whatever he grafts in, I believe, is what we give him to glorify. That's the gold, the silver, and the precious stones that he's creating within us. That's the eternal things. But when those fiery eyes hit you, what will be left? Because this is the walk that creates the things that remain eternal. And each person has a choice. The Lord is working with each person is at a different place. But may the Lord speak faithfully to you. Every one of you are called to something incredibly high. You're significant. You're powerful. You will be fruitful as you cooperate with the Lord. Where you are now, you'll be there, not there, as you take on this walk. He will change you from glory to glory. So may the Lord speak to each person what you need to hear. You raise what you don't. Speak clearly to what he is saying to you. But the reason you're here is because you're destined for great things. It's you that has to realise that. True? True. Amen. Next week, we thought we'd do something different. We thought we would have a time of testimony, like people coming and giving back for what they've received, sharing, this is what's happened in me, this is what God is doing, these are the results of what I've wrestled with, this is the things that he's worked into, this is where I think he's taking me, blah, blah, blah. Open your heart, share. Let other people see what God is doing in your life. It's a really encouraging time when you see that. It's like, oh wow, this is amazing. It's a really encouraging time. So do come, but do bring yourself and do bring your story. We'll also want to talk about what we want to do from here on in, which we need discussion, feedback from you, where your needs are. Listen to God through you and see where God is going to steer us now. Okay? And that will be important. So we need your voice, we need your feedback, and we need your story. So please do come. It'll be a good night.
But no pressure.
No pressure?
About having to speak.
Oh yeah, no pressure about speaking. No. I mean, it won't be up. Okay, now you come up in front of the camera and speak. No, it'll be like informal, relaxed, just chilling out.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
very
Amen.